I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, happy Saturday. Doing my best to put out these Saturday blogs over the summer here. I'm trying to do 2 a month, every second Saturday. I'll do my best. As you guys know, I'm busy, and now that summer's here, I'm starting to do a little more traveling. I'm heading to LA next week for a quick training camp video down there, working out, just trying to stay in shape. But I'll do my best to try and get you guys out something here every Saturday. So you guys know I dedicate the Saturday one more to kind of your mental attitude, mindset, motivation, that kind of thing. So came across a guy that I follow on Twitter. I've been following him for quite a while, called The Market Hustle. And he talks a lot about the stock market, investing, saving for retirement, all that good stuff. These are the guys I follow on Twitter. They're just kind of meat and potatoes guys, nothing fancy. Usually they're pretty experienced. They've got skin in the game. You know, this guy's a self-made multi-millionaire, not doing anything tricky at all. Same thing I did. You know, bought his principal residence at a young age, started slowly buying investment homes and hanging on to them, don't buying and flipping or anything else. He's a big index investor for his retirement, as am I. Just index invest, buy the index and low-cost funds through iShares or Vanguard. And then he owns some individual stocks, but the best of the best. Apple, Meta, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, Pepsi, Costco, Visa, UPS, all the same stuff I hold. Unilever, Estee Lauder, Nike. If you're going to own individual stocks, know what you're buying, know how they make their money, and generally buy and just hold them. Collect the dividends and reinvest it. So he came up with the 5 mandatory things that you should be taught in school. And I've done a few little blogs on this before, although none of this stuff basically, as far as I know, none of this is taught in school, in grade school or high school. Maybe I did have a teacher tell me they brush a little bit on this stuff, but this should be just as mandatory as reading, writing, English, and everything else, but I think it's not in school for whatever weird reason. So he had 5 classes that should be taught in school, and then asked, is there anything else anyone else would add? And I sent him back a response saying, yes, there's one other one, which I'll talk about, that actually I think is number 1. But the 5 that he gave: taxes. Again, talk about boring. Taxes. Who wants to learn about taxes? You don't need to learn all the intricacies of taxes. That's what you'll get an accountant for. I have an accountant who files my tax returns. I'm able to run things by him as far as my investment properties go and deductions and all that good stuff. But you need to know the basics of taxation, how it works, the different tax brackets you're in. It amazes me how many people do not understand the RRSP and TFSA and how that works. What you should be holding in your TFSA. The big one is, too, if you're going to hold U.S. stocks that pay a dividend in a TFSA, a lot of people don't realize that there is a 20% withholding tax on those U.S. dividends, and it is non-refundable. If it's in a cash account, if you own Macdonald's, you get that 20% withholding tax, but it's refundable at the end of the year. Your accountant will fill out a form, and it's given back to you. In a TFSA, it is non-refundable, and for that reason, I blogged about this before. My TFSA is 100% in U.S. equities, 100%, but it's pretty much all in growth stocks. That's where I keep my growth names, my Amazons, my Metas, my Costcos, Apple. Some of them do pay a dividend, but it's a very small dividend, maybe 1%, half of 1%. You don't want to put your Verizons in there that are paying you 6.5%, or AT&T, or even a Johnson & Johnson or a Macdonald's that are paying you 3%, because 20% of that dividend is going to be withheld, and it's not refundable. Leave those in your RRSP or your cash account. But you've got to learn the basics of taxation. Canadian Couch Potato, I plugged this site so many times. They have a tax section in there for Canadians. I would say spend 3-4 hours in there. That's all you're going to need. The basics of the tax brackets, the TFSA, the implications of that, RRSP, what to hold in those accounts. Money management, again, for sure. Money management, you need to know the basics of this. Paying yourself first ties into the taxation, the advantages of the RRSP, the advantages of the TFSA. If you're earning under $50,000 a year, you're probably better off to max out, and you can only max out one, which most people can, probably better to go with the TFSA first, before the RSP. The RSP is fantastic. You get the tax deduction on the contribution that year. But if you're already in a low tax bracket, your TFSA is probably better, because the TFSA, not only does it grow tax-free, but unlike the RSP, all that money comes out completely tax-free in a TFSA. That's why they only give us, what are we at now, $6,000? But so you gotta learn the basics of this, of money management. Retirement planning. Again, I have an accountant for this, and I also have a tax and estate planner that I consult on an hourly basis with this. You guys probably don't need that yet if you're not as old as I am and don't have the portfolio I have. But you have to know where things go for estate planning and what to start drawing down. Old age security, for instance, I will not get. It's all been clawed back because of my income. Canada Pension Plan, I always forget about it. I was just with my accountant filing my taxes a month ago. We talked about Canada Pension Plan. It's a pittance of what I'm going to get. I don't know what he told me. I'm getting the max $1,200, $1,400 a month, depending on when I start drawing it. You can start it, I think, as early as 61 or as late as 71. Of course, if you take it earlier, it's less money. You need to know this stuff. It's important for most people. It's not important to me, because Canada Pension Plan is nothing for me. I'll probably donate the little pittance that they give me to charity. I've structured my life, as I've often told you guys, to rely on nobody. I don't want the government or an employer or anything to help me in retirement. Everything I have is self-managed, and I own and I run through RSPs, TFSAs, cash accounts, brokerage accounts, and my investment portfolio. But you don't want to learn this stuff. Depending on your tax bracket, and depending on your health, do you want to start drawing down that Canada Pension Plan early? When can you get old age security? How does it tie into starting to draw down your RSP and where you're going to be taxed at? Most people, not all, will need professional help on this. I do. I rely on an accountant and a tax planner for this stuff, and I consult them on a fairly consistent basis. Real estate investing, number 4. Real estate investing, it's so misunderstood. They should be teaching this stuff in school. The advantages of buying your principal residence, taking advantage of the only true tax shelter we get in this country, the principal residence exemption. Learn how leverage works, how leverage magnifies your returns. I've done many blogs on leverage. It's one of the most misunderstood things there is out there. There's all these weird doom and gloomer pessimists that as soon as you start talking about leverage, putting 20% down on a home and borrowing the other 80%, they immediately go to, you're using leverage, you're risky, you're taking on too much debt, you're going to get wiped out. Listen, use leverage wisely, learn how it works, but listen, if you're a Canadian, it is incredibly difficult to over-leverage yourself in Canada. Almost impossible. Things can happen, of course. How people can get into trouble usually with a mortgage is they become disabled, they get a divorce and have to give 50% of their assets to the wife, they lose their job, there's and illness, they fall ill. But over-leveraging in Canada on buying a house through a Canadian bank, good luck with that. These people that always talk about over-leveraging and stuff have never owned a home, never will, have never talked to a bank and how you're going to need to give them your right arm to qualify for a mortgage in Canada. The 5th one is stock market investing. Learn how to invest your money. You can't save your way to retirement. You have to get it invested. Real estate and the equity markets, the stock markets, are the only 2 ways you're going to do it. Interest rates have gone up here and you can earn 3.5% on a term deposit or a high interest account. It's still not going to get you anywhere. Inflation is running at 3-4% and it's not tax efficient. Owning equities, capital gain, and owning real estate, capital gains are going to give you the most favorable tax treatment. Dividends from Canadian paying companies are going to give you a much better tax break. Earning interest off a bank account or a term deposit, treasury bills, whatever, they are taxed at your full marginal tax rate. So learn this stuff. It ties back to the first one, taxes, and how various investments are taxed. But stock market investing, straightforward. I tell you guys, my message has been for how long now? Keep it simple. Before you buy any individual stocks, I think your first $250,000 should just be straight into the indexes. The XIC, the XEI in Canada, the S&P 500, the VIG, the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation Fund, maybe the Schwab High Dividend, Canadian Couch Potato, again, I'll plug it. They will give you a model portfolio of ETFs that will balance and give you everything you need for a management expense cost of about 8 or 9 basis points. Almost nothing. That's what pretty much all of you should do. Then if you have a real interest in stock investing, you can do what I do and start buying some individual companies, but only after you've done your research. And I think put in at least a couple hundred hours of education on learning how stocks work, how to read a stock's chart, the PE ratios, the dividend payout ratio. You need to learn these things before you start buying individual stocks. That's why most of you should just index invest. The final thing he said, what would you add? I would add one key thing, and I blogged about it many times on Saturday, what I call optimizing your life, and that is staying in shape. This sets you up for everything in your life. This is the number one most important thing. Money doesn't matter. Taxes don't matter. Buying real estate doesn't matter unless you have your health. And I know very few successful people, the odd one. Very few high-level people, highly successful people do not have this as their number one priority. Staying in shape, working out, watching their diet, keeping their body fat percentages low, keeping their cardiovascular system well running, getting enough sleep, all that good stuff. This should be number one, because without it, everything else is a lost cause. And if you read books, the amount of books I read on successful people, no matter whatever walk of life they are, athletes, of course, are always going to be in good shape, but business leaders, musicians, pretty much all of them have a workout regimen. I was just watching a really good interview with Lars Ulrich, the drummer for Metallica. That guy had a, incredibly successful guy, art collector. His dad was a tennis pro, but he abused his body over the last couple of decades. And then of course you get into your mid 50s and a lot of these guys realize, hey, I've got all this success, all this money, I'm going to change my life. And he doesn't drink, drinks very little. He's got a chef, cooks his meals, gets enough sleep. You have to perform at the level he does. Now, I tell you guys to adopt this as part of your lifestyle. The earlier you start, the better. That's all I've ever known, is working out, staying in shape, and it's never left me. But some people discover these things a little later in life. They usually do. Don't wait until it's too late. Start taking care of yourself. It sets you up for everything success. It's a springboard to everything else in your life, whether that's your career, earning more money, starting a business, relationships, just your general outlook and attitude towards life, your energy levels, your enthusiasm towards things. If you don't look good and you don't feel good, I've told you guys, it's like a mirror. It all reflects back to you. It resonates back. So the number one thing I would leave you guys, number one thing that they should be teaching in school is health and fitness. A proper health and fitness program, dieting, nutrition, all that stuff. You read these crazy stats now. 50% of Americans now, 50% are obese. Another 80% of Americans are overweight or obese. It's funny, if you're in shape, if you can stay in shape, some of these books I read and some of these guys like a David Goggins and some of these fitness guys I follow on Twitter, it's not that hard to be top 1%. 1% would be working out 3 days a week, maybe 4, keeping a generally good tab on your diet, high protein, moderate carbs, but you have to experiment based on your metabolism and your body type and everything else. 6 months worth of education on it, a very basic program, and you could be 1%. And you'd be like a unicorn out there, as many of these people say, being in the top 1% in shape. But that would be the number one thing I would tell you guys. Ahead of all these other things, try it, see where it goes, see how it trickles into the rest of your life and sets you up for success in all the other areas of your life by staying in shape. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week.